What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we'll be taking another look at my collection. Today we'll be taking a look at my fleet of Southwest Airlines aircraft. This is a very diverse fleet in my collection, I would say, in terms of the different liveries that we have here, since Southwest is well known for their state liveries representing the various states where they have large representations in. So that's what we'll be taking a look at in this episode of my collection. And as you know, with Southwest, they operate exclusively 737s, but they did have the 727 for a brief time in the early years of their existence, so I've got a model of that as well. But otherwise, it is predominantly 737s, with a good mix of 700s, 800s, and MAX 8s. I don't have a MAX 7 from them yet because I'm waiting for that aircraft to enter service before I pick one up. But I know NG has done a couple of those, and I'm sure Gemini will probably do one whenever they or JC get a mold for the MAX 7. So we'll see what happens with that in the near future. I've got a total of 20 Southwest aircraft. That is where we stand with the Southwest fleet, and we're just going to try and do a stationary position here. And I may raise the camera up just a little bit so you guys can see the individual aircraft a little better, as opposed to it being blocked by a neighboring aircraft right next to it. And I should mention as well that these aircraft, they don't really have a particular order that I have sorted them in. I've tried to sort them by aircraft type and then livery. So I've got the regular liveries further in the back and then the specials more closer to the camera. So that is what I've gone with here. So we'll go ahead and start off with my only regular Canyon Blue aircraft, not the Heritage aircraft. This is the only regular Canyon Blue aircraft I have left in my collection. This is the Gemini Jets 2014 release 737-700 that I got off of eBay. First time that I ever participated in an eBay auction, and it was a success. It goes a little more than retail, but certainly worth the price. And then move over to the back row here. This is a model I haven't shown on my YouTube channel in a long time. This is the Panda Southwest 737-700 with splits. First time this was ever made in the scale, and unfortunately this model had a very tragic accident on my shelf. It fell off and one of the splits broke off pretty badly, so had to retire this aircraft from YouTube videos and has been sitting in storage. So I was left to use just the blended wing release by Panda Models. This was also a retailer exclusive. This one, sorry about the tripod, it's not wanting to center up properly. This one was released by Waffle Collectibles, so I got this one and used that for all the airport updates until this bad boy came in. Gemini Jets released this in the February announcement of this year, so I pre-ordered it, and despite the slightly darker color, this is still a really awesome model, and I highly recommend it if you can find it still, which it should still be readily available by the time this video comes out. And then we move into the special liveries, which again is a good mix between Gemini and NG. This is the NG Maryland 1 with the heart tail. I know Gemini did the Canyon Blue tail, but they did not do the heart tail, surprisingly. This one's got the elongated cockpit windows, which was widespread on that release. Then I have Colorado 1 by Gemini Jets. This one I customized with a heart tail not long after it surfaced that it had been repainted, but it just got the heart tail and a fresh coat of paint. So great to see that this one's still flying around, but I imagine that one's going on an 800 soon. This one's on an 800 already, New Mexico 1. Have yet to spot it, but it looks really great from the photos I've seen. This is the OG Gemini Jets release with the Desert Gold tails, so this is the only Desert Gold aircraft that I have in my collection that is not, a different aircraft type or a Heritage aircraft. And then, one that I did spot before, this one is Missouri 1. I spotted this bad boy in Tampa. So very happy to have crossed off one of the several state liveries that are still on the smaller 700 variant, November 280 Whiskey November. So this aircraft will stay in my collection even if this one does get repainted in the long term. This one did get repainted not long after I got it. This was Illinois 1. And as you can tell, this model suffered quite a bit of damage in shipping. One of the engines and landing gear broke off, so the repair job was pretty bad and tore off, ripped off, whatever. It destroyed the paint on the engine and part of the fuselage, so I had to prematurely retire this aircraft, and I'm just going to try to get rid of it somehow, whether I just give it to an antique store for like $5 or something, whatever it is. I have no value with that model anymore. This one still holds plenty of value though, and this is Lone Star 1, a Panda release Waffle Collectibles exclusive. So again, this one's been repainted on an 800 and I'm trying to get rid of it. And then Florida 1 right here by Gemini Jets. It has been fitted with split tip winglets recently, so I'll still keep this aircraft until it gets repainted onto an 800, so we'll see when that happens, but hopefully it's not too soon. That's the first row of the Southwest fleet. Now let's check out row number 2. There's my only non-737 in my collection for Southwest. This is the 727 with the different Southwest titles released by Gemini Jets in late 2023. I remember Todd Models made quite the push to get this out in the larger scale for the September batch. And then a few months later, us 1 to 400 collectors were blessed with it. And then moving down, we have the NG738 with splits in the Heart livery, released in 2019, so I got the first batch of this. And I remember seeing this at the MSP AvGeek Up, if anyone remembers that. And basically that event was at the Intercontinental Hotel, and it was just a place for any local AvGeeks in the Minneapolis area to meet up and just plane spot for the day. So I attended that, did some plane spotting at Cargo Road, as has been tradition now for the last several years, ever since I've started going there every year. So I did some spotting there beforehand, and then I did that whole AvGeek Up thing for a few hours, which was a really fun event. And then I tried to go back to the hotel, watch the Daytona 500, and unfortunately that event got rain delayed, so probably should have stayed at that event longer, but I had a lot of fun there. That was now over 5 years ago, which is crazy, and that was like the month before the whole world shut down because of the pandemic. But ever since then, things have changed, and California 1 has been on a bunch of different aircraft. It was on the 733 originally, then on the 700, and now it's on an 800. And I did spot this bad boy in Orlando, and did a nice sidestep onto the parallel departure runway, so got a really good shot of it. And I picked this up this past Christmas. Freedom 1 I've yet to spot, but this is before I set up a new policy for the Southwest Specials, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. Freedom 1 by NG. They clearly won this battle since they released it well ahead of Gemini Jets. And the Gemini 1, of course, you know, it has its flaws, but it still looks okay. Can't do too much there. This is the second release, MAX 8. Now we move on to the newest aircraft type in Southwest Fleet. The second release, MAX 8 by Gemini Jets from 2018. And I remember this one, the left wing fell out when I was doing the review. So it was not glued in, but it did not fall out when I took it out of the box, which was surprising. But as soon as I tipped it over, that darn wing fell to the floor. There you go. Look at that beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, that was not a pleasant experience, and 14-year-old me was not happy at that. But at any rate, we move on to the next Gemini, and this is the Desert Gold Heritage. They're the Herbert Keller Retro. There's a bunch of different names for it, but I like to call it the Desert Gold Retro. And yeah, the color is not the greatest on this, and the NG release certainly didn't fare any better either the first time around. And then the Euro Classics, well, that one's got its own fair share of issues. NG Light did it more recently, and the color's a lot better on it, so, you know, I don't really want to replace it because I don't want to go through that hassle, because I think this one is okay for me. This one turned out much better, though. The Canyon Blue Colleen Barrett Heritage aircraft, it looks awesome, and obviously the NG's got the better mold and whatnot, but I'm certainly very happy with this Canyon Blue Retro. Looks really good on the MAX 8. It fit well on the 800, which I used to have from NG, but then I sold that. So having it on the MAX 8 looks perfect. And then there is Imua 1. This is the NG release, which looks fantastic. My first and only so far NG MAX 8 that I have in my collection, and NG MAX in general. So hopefully I'll change that soon if there's some new stuff that comes out. And then I forgot to mention this one as well. This is Arizona 1, another livery I have spotted before in Minneapolis in 2020, right before that whole AvGeek Up. So how it all comes full circle with everything. So that, my friends, is my current Southwest collection. Very great fleet with the 20 current aircraft that I have, but that number will continue to fluctuate as I try to get rid of some of these state liveries that don't really fly anymore. I try to get rid of them because then it just takes up space in my collection. But the only exceptions I'm making to it is if I have spotted the aircraft in the past. So obviously Missouri 1 right here, and then Arizona 1 down there. those two will stay in my collection regardless, and then California 1 as well will be long term. And then just any other state liveries that I do spot, or even the retro jets down here, the Max 8s and whatnot, if those get spotted, then yeah, those will stay in my collection. So obviously beforehand, I tried to collect all the state liveries, and I got pretty darn close to completing the whole fleet, but by the time I got to that stage, they were already repainting them onto the 800. So at this point, I just said, screw it. I'm not going to try and collect all the state liveries again. I don't really want to do that. But now I'm only going to get the state liveries if I have spotted them before. So California 1, of course, was the first state livery that went through that policy since I spotted it in Orlando. And then the Missouri and Arizona 1, well, the Missouri 1 I had well before I spotted it. And then Arizona 1, that one I got that one at my first Airliners International Convention in Chicago, more than 2 years after I spotted it. So great model to have in my collection. And yeah, all these models, they tell their own stories, and that's kind of why I do these My Collection episodes, because each model has its own story to tell, and it creates for some nice content for you guys to enjoy, especially if you are new to the channel and haven't really seen my older videos. This provides a nice platform for me to tell these stories on these models and what they mean to me and all that fun stuff. So, you know, this Southwest collection, it's grown quite a bit, and I remember wanting to really build up this airline in my collection, and here I am now, 5 years later, with the 20 planes that I currently have. And then again, that number is going to fluctuate pretty often as I remove some older state liveries that don't exist anymore, and then add any new ones that I do spot in the future. And then some of the other Southwest planes I had, as I mentioned, the NG Canyon Blue 800 with splits. That one I sold, and then I had Tennessee 1 by Gemini. That one I also sold, and then the Desert Gold 700, that one I also sold as well. All those three I sold at last year's Airliners Convention in Kansas City. So those have all gone to new homes, where they have certainly found their place in other collections. So, I try to get rid of them because, again, I don't have much space, so I just try to see if I can get rid of any models that I don't really need anymore or, want. And Southwest is just kind of that place where that does happen fairly often. So as of right now, I'm going to try to get rid of Lone Star, Illinois, and the New Mexico one probably as well. So we'll see. I have to think that through, though. So we'll see what happens with that. But I hope you enjoyed this episode of my collection, a great Southwest fleet for sure, and I'm excited to continue growing it with any new state liveries or even different aircraft types like the Max 7 whenever they come around into their fleet. With that being said, that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.